weird. Okay. Right, so if I change this then, hang on. So if I change so I need to be able to show Notepad, don't I? Notepad plus plus. Okay, that's my audio. Now I need to do window capture, Notepad plus plus plus. Nope. That. Yep. Haha, I'm back in the game. Woo! Put me over here. There we go. Right, so I can see the code. We can see the code. That's cool. We can see the code, we can see me, we can hear me. What else do we need to do? We need to see frots, don't we, if we're going to play a little bit of Deadline, or if we're going to play around with the code. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, let's see. So if I go to frots only, frots plus me, ha ha ha, boom, back in the game. Okay. Please check the resolution. The current resolution is, which is what? Just learning the ropes. And I will be back in a second. Bear with me. Okay, let's have a look. Here we go. Oh, cool. Is that you, Mark? How you doing? Good to see you on the chat. I'm about to dive into your code. And we'll see what's going off in there. Cool. Yeah, I'm going to just... so I'm curious to see basically how close the code that we've written, which when I look at it, it's terrible code. Because basically I wrote it about 2 years ago, and at that point we hadn't got the source code, so we were kind of making it up. So yeah, I'm curious to know basically how close it is to the code that you got in Deadline. So yeah, that's cool. You don't need to stick around forever, but it's cool that you've popped by anyway. So that's awesome. So yeah, I mean I'll show you this then quickly. So basically, where are we now? So yeah, so basically, I was doing a game called one second. Notepad. There we go. So I was doing this, and I'd called it Hackers. So you know, obviously Steve Levy's book. Well, I wanted to do it, and I wanted to incorporate a load of the characters, a load of the real people from that, and have them moving around. So basically, the way that I did it was just did it through a routine. So obviously I just queue it up, iHacker, got all the characters obviously down here on the left, and then as we scroll down it kind of kicks in here, and obviously these are the two main things. So yeah, basically then it just goes through there. So if I run it, let me just actually run it a second. Development, hackers. Yeah, like I say, the code is terrible. It's all over the place. But you know, this is a first effort basically. Even I'm looking. I mean, I'm not the best in the group by a long way, but even I'm actually looking in there, and I'm just thinking, man, this is this is shocking. I don't know what I was doing. But basically, yeah. I mean, I'll just type wait, and the robot that I've got in there. Don't know why I put a robot in there. But anyway, I'm not sure if you ever had a robot at MIT. But if I do wait again, McCarthy and Minsky are talking. They head out to the room to the basement. Peter Sampson walks out. He's going to get some food. The robot charges up. Peter Sampson comes back in. Peter Sampson goes back out again. And that's it. So yeah, I mean that's far as I got. I mean it was just mucking about really with test code. So yeah, just that's it. I'm just curious to know how close that was compared to what you actually wrote in Deadline, really. So I'm going to have a look around. I'm going to have a poke around and see what's in there. No, mate, I've not read it. I'll have a read of it now. Bear with me. Let me have a look. Okay. Somebody initially for Deadline. That's a way to recall. There were lines that ran from one terminus to another. Transfer points with lines. The NPC was given a goal, and then each turn would figure out. Oh, right, okay. Yeah. So the reason, right, okay, so that's quite a lot more. That's quite a lot more intelligent than in terms of the code as obviously we were doing it. So you know, obviously you had Torben the other day referring to it as being on Rails. So basically, if you look at the code, I'll flick back to mine. You know, this is code on Rails, right? So basically, it's just like click, 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 next turn, next turn, next turn, next turn. And what I was curious to see was whether or not there was actually a way of doing it more intelligently, so that basically the NPC moved from A to B to C, but if something happened in B, maybe they went straight to F, room G, and whatever. So okay, that's cool. Right, so I'll have a look around in the code. But yeah, thanks for posting that. I'm just having a read of you. The recording's actually behind the text that's coming up on my messaging screen, so bear with me. Right, okay. Yeah. So where you've put based on where they were, so if a gunshot went off, it might cause A to go to location L. Yeah, this is where I want to get to. Yeah, this is where I want to get to. Yeah, where they were, the gunshot was heard. Yeah, cool. Okay, so I've got it in front of me now. So, So, yeah. So this is obviously the deadline code. I've noticed something just quickly while you're on. In every one of the source code directories, there's always a dungeon.zil. Like it'll be in the deadline one and it'll be in the hitchhikers one. There's always a file called dungeon.zil. Is that just a? Yeah, not sure why that is. Just curious. Okay. So I'm basically looking for something like it's going to be in the actions, isn't it? Yeah, routine iGuard.com. Let me just read what you put again. Right, okay. Yeah. So I'm guessing it wasn't an actual queue then. It's not going to be the clock. I suppose it could be goal. Okay, here we go. Rapid transit line identifiers. Routine, established goal, person goal. Okay. Yeah, okay. Haha. Goal table. Yeah, doing it through tables. Transfer. Yeah, like here, for example, if there's somebody in any of those rooms, it's going to trigger you to say you can hear footsteps on the staircase. Here's the code for goal motivation for the various characters. Each character has a tendency to move from one place to another at certain times. They all converge on the living room at about noon. Constants used as a table offsets. I should download the code sometime. Link. Yeah, I can get you a link. 1 second. Take about 2 seconds. Okay, I've just dropped you a link in there. Just let me know if that works. That should go to... It's just to my Google Drive. So let me know if that one works. I'm just reading back on what you put again. Those are the lines in. Right, so yeah, it's the right place, right? So you've done it through tables. Looks like it wasn't totally generalised. Anything for me. Document some. Yeah, that was good. You've written in the code. You don't get that in many of them. So yeah, that's good. Cheers. Yeah, here we go. I'm using Notepad++. I couldn't actually get VS Code to work. I downloaded it and it started out okay, but then every time I tried to click debug, it just basically bailed on me and just kept moaning that the folder name wasn't the same as the file name. And I tried renaming it, but at the end of it, I just went back to Notepad++. I know where I am with that. Okay, let's check this out then. So here's how the movement goals are done. For each player is a table which consists of triplets, a number of minutes until the next movement, clock interrupt number, a number of minutes allowed variation for a bit of randomness, okay, and a room toward which to start. All movement is controlled by the goal enable flag in the goal table. Right, cool. Yeah, so you put it all in here. Give me a second because I've just got some echo in the background. Right, okay, let's have a look at this. The tricky bit often is, what we've found is that the tricky bit is actually re-implementing sometimes what you guys did into our code files. So how we've been doing it so far is we've had a very, I'll show you, in fact, we've had a very specific library set. So if I go back into my hackers directory a second. In fact, no, let me back out of that. Let me go to ZIL library. We've got events. This is generic. We've got events, orphan, parser, pronouns, pseudo, scope, template, verbs, and basically all we do is insert file parser, and then the parser links out to everything else. So we haven't got a big set of ifile. We've just got the one typically. I mean, I've got my own little verbs plus file for just weird stuff that I want to implement in that. So that's how. So then sometimes it's been tricky to. So we've got a very set block. We've got a very set way of doing it, or we've had a very set way of doing it. And I think if you look at the early games, Zork tends to start like that. But then you can see that as time's gone on, you've got more to the point where you don't need that system, and you're just able to do it as you needed it. So that was a long-winded way of saying that I don't. It's going to be more than a copy and paste job, right? It's not just. It's not just something where we can just rip this out. Right. Okay. Right. So, okay, so we start off then. So time starts at 8 AM. Characters are at that point in their starting positions as reflected in dungeon. So that's what the dungeon file was then. Right. Yeah, okay. So dungeon is basically your rooms, as the name would suggest. And then in here, they all start there at 8 AM. Obviously, that's when the game starts. And then... So, Gardner, Baxter, Dunbar, George, Mrs. Robner, Rourke, and Coates, their movement is all controlled by this table. North Lawn 10... Right, so okay, so if we look at the gardener then, what you've got is the gardener could be, they've got some flexibility, right? So the gardener could be in the north lawn between 9 and 10, the east lawn from 10 to 11, the rose garden 11 till 1, orchard 1 till 2, and so on and so forth. So these are the so you've got movement goals, and what was the other one? So you've got goal enable and goal table. And then we do, right, and then we do routine start movement. So it is actually queued. It is the queue system. It's just, it's not rigid like mine was. It's got some flexibility in it. Yeah. I'm just reading your message. Deadline is trying to create a system that could be used by the games. And it was, of course, suspended. Yeah. So this is a really interesting thing, right? So I don't know. So it's like we were saying in the Facebook chat. So this is, I don't know, circa 40 years old. If you look at the systems that are out there, and I'm probably going to get shot by certain people for saying this, but if you look at Infocom or whatever it may be, TADS, I don't think there's anything that's any more intelligent, basically, than the way that this code is written. It's still, it's still the way to do it, basically. If you want your NPCs to appear intelligent, basically, and to move around in a sort of intelligent way, and you can interact with them, and they pause, and then they move on. Yeah, and maybe that's like we said in the chat. Maybe it's because there's a level where you get to, you don't need to go much further, and you guys hit on it just very early on. Right, so here, okay, so if we look at the gardener, routine gardener, is the gardener called McNab? Oh no. Oh yeah. All of a sudden, Mr. McNab starts talking to himself quite loudly about his poor roses being moved. Right, so Mr. McNab's the gardener. Right, coolio. Okay, so then McNab... Right, so here we are, look. So, it's... I can see what it's doing. Right, I can see what it's doing. It's checking. It's moving the character into a location. And then it's asking the question... Who's in that room? Who's in that room? What's happening? And then dependent on that, it's checking the table again, and it's moving the character some way. So if there's an explosion, then the character's going to go to room A. If it's all quiet, they might stay in B. If somebody talks to them they don't like, they're going to move to C. I think that seems to be what's going off. Because here, for example, it's got, is the ladder here? If not, move the ladder. McNab picks up the ladder and walks away toward the orchard. Yes, is good. Oh, right. Okay, Mrs. Dunbar. Baxter looks at the body of Miss Dunbar lying on the floor and falls to his knees. He starts to sob. I knew she would do this, he says, sobbing. I guess I ought to put spoiler alerts at the start of this video. A bit too late now. So, what I'm trying to work out now is whether you got everything in this one file, goal.zil, if this is the lot, or if you've actually broken it up and you've got other people, other NPCs walking around, other NPCs being defined in other files. Let's have a look. I think they're all in this goal one. What's Crufty? What's this? Got some of the code in here as well. Routine gardener. Right, I'm going to close clock because that's not, I don't think there's anything in clock. I'm going to shut some of these down so I can actually, it's not messing with my head. Although actually, having said that, you've got something in here. Is that the end of the game? Yeah, here we go, look. So the clock, so in the clock.zil is the end of it. And basically tells you that you didn't complete the game, you were a load of rubbish, and play again. Cool, so we don't need that one. Don't think we need Crufty. Don't think I'm going to need macros. Nope. VT100 over 24K on the mainframe. Hard to believe all this was written on a VT100. You see that one? There's a video clip which I've posted, which is from '85. I remember seeing it on TV at the time, actually. Yeah, you see that. I think Dave Leblin's working on the VT100. You can see that in the background. Deadline was crazy complicated. Using the high-level language. Respect. Yeah. It's insane this stuff fit on a floppy disk and ran on a Commodore 64. Okay. So I get one question then, is how frequently did you edit the parser, if at all? Because our golden rule is don't edit the parser, don't touch it. It's like the black box, do not touch the parser. But I didn't know whether you guys actually, each time you made a game, you did actually go into it and edit it, so you would have a deadline parser and a suspended parser. But I'm going to close that one off because I don't think there's any code in it that's relevant to moving people around. Okay, main. Right, okay. So there was a little bit of work done on the parser then. So it's developed over time, basically. Fair enough. Right, okay. So, So, long story short, majority of it is in here. It's done in tables, and it's kind of scenario driven rather than it being just sequential. Basically, something happens and it triggers the character to go and do something different. We haven't got anything in dungeon. That just sets where they start, and the deadline file is just the start file. So basically it's all in goal and actions. So yeah, that's the crack. So the next thing then is we've got to work out how to kind of implement that into into our little stack of library files, basically, so we can move the NPCs around as smoothly as this. Just do a quick hello to everybody. Thanks for joining. Right, okay. Yeah, I mean that's basically it now. So I reckon that's kind of how it works. So I think the thing is to go and have like a proper deep play into it. I don't know that there's too much else I can look at now. So, yeah, I reckon I may as well just play some Deadline, to be honest. And you can see, you can see me completely. You can see me fail massively at the game, as you realise just how bad I actually am at these things. Just give me a second. But yeah, that's interesting. So, see, what I will say is the manuals that we've got so far. We've got the Moretsky manual, and we've got I think one, Mark, that you wrote. Although that I only found out about that the other day, actually. And I think in there, obviously, it tells you about the queue and the routines and things like that. But the table thing is a different way of doing it. So I wouldn't have thought of that necessarily. So that's interesting. Okay, right. Okie dokie. Let's play a little Deadline then. So yeah, I want to play some Deadline now. So yeah, if anybody wants to watch that, you're welcome. If not, then that's all good too. Let me just find my file. We'll play the one actually that based on. So Alex Proudfoot in the group has done a lot of work making sure he went through all the source code directories that were provided on GitHub, and he went through them and basically made sure that they all compiled. What that does mean is that I'll give Alex the blame if anything doesn't work. So let's see this. We're going to see it in action now. Hang on, let me just. Boom. There we go. Right. Okay. I actually haven't played this, to be honest. I've played Suspect. Okay, South Lawn. You're on a wide lawn just north of the entrance to the Robner estate. Directly north at the end of a pebble path is the Robner house, flanked to the north, east and the northwest by a vast expanse of well-kept lawn. Beyond the house can be seen the lakefront. You're at the Robner's front door, which is closed. You can walk around the house from here to the east or west. To the south, the rolling lawns lead to the entrance of the estate. Okay, you've got to knock on the door. We've got to be polite. What I want to do is I want to follow some of the characters around. So I want to see that code in action now, basically. Okay, you hear footsteps inside the house. Mrs. Robner, dressed in black, opens the door and greets you. Hello, she says, I'm Mrs. Robner. Please come in. I'm afraid I can't really help you much. This is surely a terrible waste of time, not to mention upsetting. Having all these police marching around the house. This has been a trying time, as I suppose you can understand. As I told Mr. Coates and the other detective, you may look around, but you must be out by 8 o'clock. Oh, almost forgot. Mr. Coates will be reading my husband's will at noon in the living room. Okay, so there we go. So that's why in the tables and that's why everybody needed to assemble into the living room at noon. Okay. So now we see why that was there in the code. There's the fire of the Robner house, beautifully pointed with a fine. Right, okay. So Mrs. Robner heads off to the north. So if we go north, we're just going to follow Mrs. Robner, right? So can I talk to Robner? Ah, okay. Mrs. Robner's gone now. I've lost her. Oh no, I've got her again. Robner heads off to the north or swinging double doors. Okay, So Mrs. Robner's preparing a meal. Mrs. Rourke is here cleaning the kitchen. You used to be able to type. I think you can type follow, can't you? Is it follow Robner? You're in the same place, yeah. Ask Robner about Rourke. Looks briefly towards Mrs. Rourke and then speaks in a low whisper. She's an excellent housekeeper and sometimes even helps with the cooking. For all her good qualities, though, she's too much of a snoop and a gossip. She tires to keep track of everyone around here. It's unnerving sometimes, but as servants go these days, she's quite extraordinary. Okay. If I wait around long enough, is somebody going to... I want to see if anybody's going to come and go. Here we go, right. Mrs. Robner heads off to the south. Do you want to keep waiting? No. I want to go south now. Chase Mrs. Robner. Heads off to the west. Right. Dining room. You've entered the dining room. A long table seating 12 is in the centre of the room and a large trestle table. Right, okay, okay, so what I'm going to do... Right, so Mrs. Robner, she goes off to the kitchen, then she comes out, and then she goes to the dining room. So let me have a nosy at let's have a look at the code, basically. Let's have a look at the code. So bear with me. So Robner. I mean, we knocked on the door, so presumably that was some kind of cue for Mrs. Robner to come here. See, the interesting thing is, we followed Mrs. Robner to the kitchen, right? And then out the kitchen to the dining room. But I'm not seeing her in this table here. I'm not actually seeing her in the kitchen at any point. Rourke's in the kitchen. Rourke actually stays there, but Mrs. Robner... Okay, hang on, here we go. Yeah, okay. Right. Not going to lie, I think I've got a little bit confused. So I need to back up a bit. So the bit that's just throwing me off a little bit is in the game itself, I've just followed Mrs. Robner off her own code. She's gone to the dining room and then... Sorry, she's gone to the kitchen, then to the dining room. But that doesn't seem to be in her table of movements, so I just wonder... I'm going to have another look into it. Maybe it's in actions. Oh, let's just catch up on the. Let's catch up on the chat. You see nothing special about the jewel encrusted. Yeah, I mean you talk about limitations of memory, and you know, in the UK we were heavily driven on tape, so you know, basically between sort of 80-85, you would have had things like an Auric or a Jupiter or a Spectrum. You were mostly ZX81. You were talking about sort of 16K to maybe, I mean, some people had the Commodore 64, but most people would have had a Spectrum, to be honest. So you're talking about 48K max. Okay, cool. Right. Well, so I've got a reasonable understanding of how this is working. I need to actually sit down with the code and read through it, because this is kind of, yeah. My brain's starting to explode a little bit, to be honest with you. What I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to cut the stream there. But thank you very much for joining and checking it out. I think we've got our heads around how the basics of how the characters move around, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to just dive in and look at the code and see what was going off and understand how the movement was structured, and we've got that. It's in here. It's all, and Mark has very kindly even commented in it and explained in the code how it works. So that's great. But I need to go and play with the game now, and then come back to the code and keep checking and playing around, testing movements and things, basically, and testing how everybody works. Then I'm going to try putting this into one of my own games. Well, not even a game. I'm just going to build a set of rooms, 5 rooms or something, and just try and move the NPCs around and around. But yeah, that's it. So I'll end the stream there. So thanks everybody for joining. Mark, thank you very much for joining and checking it out, and thank you for the help poking around in the code. Let me know if you download that. Let me know if you download that code link and have a bit of a poke around and see if you spot anything in there that's I don't know. Just see what you think. You might spot something you think, oh, I could rework that. Okay, right. I'm going to sign off, guys. Take care. Have a good night. It's actually, for me, it's 10:30. So, you know, I've got 2 young kids. So 10:30 is like, that's bedtime. I'm done. So, all right. Take care, guys. I'll see you later.